All right, Shabbat Shalom. We are in Genesis 37, and this is really the last toldot of Genesis. So if you've been with us for a while, you know that we are studying the book of Genesis, Bereshit, in the beginning. That's what the Hebrew word means. And we've seen the natural outline, really, of Genesis made up of this word, this key word in Genesis, that in our Bibles, in our English Bibles, is most often translated as the generations. So these are the generations of, or these are the descendants of. But you and I have worked through this, right? Like in here, it said these are the records of the generations of Jacob, right? In verse 2. Now we have worked through this, and we have seen how, for instance, in Genesis 2:4, this translation just doesn't fit. Because you can't say, these are the generations of the heavens and earth. So right there, you got to come up with a different way of translating that. Well, in order for you to translate differently, you got to understand the passage, right? And so when you go deeper into the meaning of the word in the passage, then you realize that one strategy to come up with a better translation that suits all of the occurrences of this word, the one strategy is by looking at the function of this word. So how is this word functioning in all of these passages? Well, when you do that, then you realize that this word is functioning as a title and a summary. You know, remember we studied this, and we have all of this online. You can go back and take a look. So this first verse in each of these really 10 divisions of the book of Genesis, you know, 10 occurrences, 10 significant occurrences, 10 portions or sections of the book, plus Genesis 1, that makes number 11. So in all of these passages in occurrences of the word toldot, then we've seen together that the word functions to describe what became of the person or the thing mentioned. So when you do that, then it fits, because now you can say, this is what became of Jacob. This is what became of Terah. This is what became of Noah. And then surprisingly, you can go back to Genesis 2:4, and then it fits when you say, this is what became of heavens and earth. And so now, not only do you have a suitable translation, but you have a phrase that actually communicates the theology that the author actually meant. Because that's how that phrase functions in each of these contexts. It is a summary to tell us this is what became of this person or this thing. And so we have seen how this phrase is increasingly focusing. You know, you can see how these words are kind of like, there's a word for this, and I'm drawing a blank. I'm telling you two words that are the opposite. Increasingly, what? Contradiction? Yeah, that would be a good word to describe it. So increasingly focusing, you know, focusing our attention more and more into the story that God wants to highlight. So the first toldot is as big as it can get. This is what became of heavens and earth, the whole thing. And then it says, this is what became of humanity. This is what became of Adam. And then this is what became of Noah, and this is what became of the children of Noah. Still big enough, but then it begins with Terah in Genesis 11. This is what became of Terah. Right? And so right there it begins to reduce, to narrow it down. And so we've seen it in the last few weeks, right? This is what became of Terah, and that's the story of Abraham. It always looks forward, it never looks backwards. Right? This is what became of Isaac, and we have the story of Jacob. And we have actually seen how the book even tells us this is what became of Ishmael, and this is what became of Esau. Because that's another characteristic of this book that we've seen together, which is that this book is, especially the story, beginning with the story of Abraham, or the Toldot of Terah, beginning with them, we see the origin of the nations around Israel who are going to become Israel's enemies. And all of this together is to be read in light of what we've studied about the poems of the Torah. Remember, in the poems of the Torah, we have three major ones. Genesis 49, Jacob blessing his children before he dies. Numbers 24, Balaam, the false prophet that cannot curse, but has to bless. So we see actually a warning to Balak and his nation, which is the Moabites. Important because they come from Lot. And so he issues a warning, and it's a prophetic warning in the form of a poem. And then at the end of Deuteronomy, at the end of the Torah, then we see Moses also issuing a final warning to Israel. And in all three, we've seen how they begin with this same scene, so to speak, a scene that repeats in all three, which is the main character gathers together an audience and he tells them what will happen in the end of days, in the end times. And that's how we know that we're supposed to read the Torah as a book about the end times. And then in particular, we read Genesis that way. So when we read Genesis that way, we understand that, for instance, the story of Abraham has three major, I'm not sure if sections, but let's use the word sections for now. Has three major sections, which is Abraham with Lot, Abraham with Ishmael, and Abraham with Isaac. Those are three main players in the end times in terms of nations, right? Because from Lot, you're going to get the Moabites and the Ammonites. And they may not even be around anymore. But then the principle, the prophetic and eschatological principle is that whatever it is said about a people in the Torah, or even in the rest of Scripture, especially in the Tanakh, whatever is said about those people, when it applies to the end times, it applies to the people who live in the land where they lived. So we know the Philistines are definitely not around as an ethnic identifiable people. But the land where they lived surely is there, and it surely is a big player in the end times, right? The Gaza Strip. And so through that principle, then we see how important it is, this Abraham with Lot, and then obviously Abraham with Ishmael. So we get really Islam in the end times, and of course Isaac, the people of Israel. The same happens with the next generation, with the next Toldot, with Jacob. And so from Esau, we get Jacob, Israel, and then also, for Isaac, we get Jacob and Esau. And then Esau also is one of the nations around the nation of Israel today. So this is speaking about Israel's neighbors, who in the end times are going to be big players as enemies of the Jewish people, the Jewish state. And then we come to Jacob, to the Toldot of Jacob. And so in Genesis 37:1, we read that these are the records of the generations of Jacob. So this is what became of Jacob. And of course, it's never about the person, it's always about their descendants, about what was coming after them. And the first word is Joseph. So this is what became of Jacob, Joseph. It's that way in the Hebrew text. It's emphasized. And so now we're going to enter into taking a look at what is it that God wants to say about Israel in the end times through not only the story of Joseph. Remember, they always come at least in pairs, right? Not only the story of Joseph, but the story of Judah. Because the Toldot of Jacob is about Joseph and Judah. All right. So then, yeah, so much we could say here, right? So then we begin the story of Joseph. So the first paragraph, so to speak, is setting up the character. Joseph as a, picture this as a movie. This is your first scene. So it's going to show you, right, what's important. What do you need to know about this character, about the protagonist, right, about the star of the movie? Why do you need to know about his character and about his characteristics in his context, what's happening with them?
Curiouser and curiouser, it says, when Joseph was 17 years old, he was a youth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at 13, he's considered a man. So it's interesting that the text mentions he was a youth. In other words, he was still kid-like.
Well,
he wasn't really.
Well, remember that the 13-year-old thing is going to come later in Jewish culture. Of course, you know that. Yeah. So the term is na'ar, and that phrase is kind of loosely applied. It could be. Yeah. And even with soldiers, you can use that word with soldiers, actually. Like Abraham's men who he took with him to defeat those who kidnapped Lot and everybody there. It uses the word na'ar. Youth. Which is the word that's being used over here. So, okay, so we're going to stay in 37. There's so much just in here. So Joseph, when 17, so it tells us how old he is, and then it tells us that he is a youth as well, right? But look what it says. It tells us that the text considers important to tell us that he is a shepherd. Yes. Right? And this is a picture, this is a character, he's communicating character to you, the nature of this person. And in that way, then, it's comparing him to Jacob, who is a shepherd, to Abraham and Isaac as shepherds. But it goes all the way back to Abel. This image of the brother who is a shepherd, it goes all the way back. And so it's communicating to you, this is the good guy. That's what it's telling you.
So it's not just his job was a shepherd.
Right.
The shepherd's heart.
Right. But we're going to see how it's important in the text here. All right. So now the thing with the word shepherd or pasturing, the verb here, I am so sorry that you cannot see the little words underneath. I need to write to these people who make the software and tell them. Yeah. I used to work for them, and it's owned by it's a Jewish wife, and they met in Israel. He went to study in Israel. She made Aliyah from England, and they met there, and then they came back to Texas. No, he's from Texas, but they came back to Florida. So I worked for them for a little bit. So the thing with this word, pasturing or shepherding, is that in the Hebrew it is ra'ah. Ra'ah. And it is spelled different, but it sounds the same as the word evil. The word evil is ra'ah. So when you hear it, it sounds the same. It's spelled different. But then the text, the Torah, does a lot of play on words. A lot of play on the sound of words with this word. And we're going to see it in context here. All right. So he is with the sons of Bela and the sons of Silpah. This is significant. Otherwise, it wouldn't tell us. I want you to see real quick. Let me go back here. The sons of Bela are Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Silpah are Gad and Asher. Who's missing here? Reuben. Simeon. Levi. And Judah. Prominent. Because these are the guys that have the most problem with Joseph. We're going to see it in the story in a little bit. All right. So it says that Joseph brought back a bad report. This people find fault with Joseph for telling his dream, and that was kind of naive. Joseph is very naive. I think that's one of the main takeaways that we see here. He's innocent, but that's not a good thing. You have to be wise. And there is one other section in Scripture where we find this issue of bringing a bad report, an evil report. It's using the word evil here. So you need to know that it's using the word ra, right? We just compare that one with shepherding, pastoring. So he's a shepherd. He's supposed to. Here's the connection, okay? So that you know, the connection between shepherd and evil is that a shepherd is supposed to feed the sheep. Therefore, he makes you fruitful. And in that way, then being a shepherd has a connection with good. Remember, good, the word good, and God saw that it was good, and God saw that it was good, and God saw that it was good. Good is that which makes you fruitful. Okay. So a shepherd is one who makes people fruitful, or sheep fruitful. They're going to eat, they're going to reproduce, they're going to be healthy. That's the key. So then, when a shepherd that's something evil, it is the opposite. Because good and evil obviously are opposite. So evil is the opposite of making you fruitful. Something that is not beneficial for the intended purpose that God has for you, to make you fruitful. And that's the connection here. I believe if there's a fault that we can find with Joseph, is that he brought this evil report. And what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, when the spies, you remember, brought an evil report about the land, Numbers 13 and 14, they spoke about the land. What they said were not lies, but it was slander. So it's when you take someone's faults, you magnify them, and then you go around, spreading this, and you're being factual,
but not truthful.
But you're slandering. Sounds like Facebook. Doesn't it? Anyway. So Joseph signs into Facebook and he posts an evil report, right? Some fake news about his brothers. A lot of people hit like in that one, right? And love, especially love. So I really think this is the fault that we see with with Joseph that he was a good kid and he lacked wisdom, because we're going to see a little bit how to handle a situation like that. Okay, how we could see that God would have wanted him to handle that. All right, verse 3 then, to add insult to injury, right? Now here's the favorite. So Israel loves him more than all the other guys, and they know it. I grew up with a grandmother like that. She will tell everybody, my favorite grandson is Joey. And I hated that. because the other kids are going to come to me. It wasn't that bad, but so his brothers saw that their father loved him. Now you know the word saw. We talked about the word saw. You see, it's the word again. The word ra'ah. Wow, this they're not all the same words. They're spelled a little different, but they have to do with it. There's a play on words, right, that the Spirit of God does. This is how you search the scriptures. You look for these connections. For one word, they're not necessarily quoting each other. They're echoing each other, right? So it's settled. The Spirit of God inviting you. Are you going to search me? I have treasures here for you. Are you going to search me? Right? All right. All kinds of connections going on. That's what you're wondering, huh? I could. All right. I got to stay here because Bob is going to get after me if I don't. All right, so his brothers saw. The activity of seeing is theologically important, because God reserves the activity of seeing for himself. Seeing is evaluating the situation to decide what is good. Again, Genesis 1, and God saw, and God saw, and God saw. And then in Genesis 2, and God saw that it was not good for man to be alone, because he couldn't be fruitful. So again, it ties to fruitfulness. You know, it's deciding what is good to make someone fruitful. It's making that decision, that evaluation. So his brothers are going to take this upon themselves to decide what they need to do and what is good in this situation. So they saw that. They hated him. They couldn't speak to him shalom. That's literally what it says. They couldn't speak to him in shalom. Why? What is shalom? Again, you know, we talked about shalom. Is shalom peace?
Wholeness, completeness, wealth.
Shalom comes from the word shalem, that means to be complete, to lack nothing. You have peace when you realize, when you align yourself, when you agree with God. Yes, I agree with you. I lack nothing. I have everything that I need. Now, do I have everything I'm going to need tomorrow, today? That's not how he operates. You know, we have all spiritual blessings in him, in the beloved. Right? So when we come into alignment with him, we agree with him, then we're good. We can have peace. I'm okay with you. You know, it doesn't matter what happened or who did this. I'm good with you. I'm good with you. Right? So there is peace in between us. But that was not the case here. Verse 5, then Joseph had a dream. And when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, please listen. What's the word for listen? Shema. Shema. Hear, O Israel. Hear my voice. Hear me. So the Spirit of God is speaking to the brothers. Unfortunately, through Joseph, they can't hear it. But the Spirit of God is speaking to them and saying, if you would just listen to my voice in this dream, you would not oppose it. You will align yourself. This is for your blessing. But they will have none of it. So listen to this dream which I've had. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf rose up and also stood erect. Now, here's the thing. Sheaf is harvest. So you go into the field, and this is specifically with barley, which barley is the harvest that we start on Passover, and wheat, which is the harvest that we start on Shavuot, the day of Pentecost. Huge significant, prophetic significance in here. And so you will cut the stalks of either wheat or barley, and you will gather them together and tie them together so you can, carry them to the next place where you're going to do other things to it. And so he sees Israel in the middle of harvesting, and Joseph takes prominence. Joseph takes prominence. And he says, in your sheaves, gather around and bow down. Right? Then his brothers said to him, they actually, without knowing it, they understood what this meant. They said, are you actually going to be king? In Egypt? Yep, the answer is yes. I will be like Pharaoh over you. Or are you really going to rule over us? This is an ironic reversal. This is the thing that they hated. It's exactly what is going to happen. It's exactly what the Spirit of God meant. So they hated him even more. Right? Now, he had still another dream. Now, the word another. We've talked about this word too. The word in Hebrew is acher, and it's related, we've spoken about this word, it's related to the word aharei. Aharei. Aharei is the word for the end times. That which comes after. That which comes at the end. That's what this is. So now the Spirit of God is speaking to the brothers and is saying, pay attention. This is about the end times. So, about the end times. It says, lo, I have had still another dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me.
What do you think the significance is the fact that he didn't learn to shut up the first time he did it, because they obviously pushed back, but he's gonna
that's extremely important in the passage, because that's why he's going to have to go through everything. That's one reason, not the only one, but that's one reason, because of his lack of wisdom and innocence. So yeah, it's big. So the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down. He told it to his father and to his brothers, and his father rebuked him. And again, the Spirit of God was right on, told him exactly what the dream meant. Because he said, shall I, Jacob, and your mother and your brothers actually come to bow ourselves down before you to the ground?
Mother's dead, remember?
Yes. Yes.
It has to be the future.
It's his future, end times. So when we go over to the book of Revelation, Revelation 12, it says, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon, and under her feet and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems. And his tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven, and threw them to the earth. These stars are the angels. The other stars are the people of Israel. They're not the same. And it says, and the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. Who is this child? Who is the woman? Israel. The sun, the moon, and all the stars. Mom, dad, and all the fathers, the mothers, and the children of Israel. That's what Joseph's dream is about. That's the context. That's the end time correlation to it. So Jacob was right on, but he couldn't accept it either. He couldn't see it. So his brothers were jealous of him, but his fathers kept the saying in mind. Well, the word in mind, the phrase in mind, is not in the original. So he kept the saying. What does that mean? Look, the word kept is guard, shamar, to guard. And the word saying is davar, the word. What do you do with the words that you receive? Do you guard them? Do you write them down? Oh, here I go again. Right? Do we journal what we're hearing from the Lord? This is the way to steward it. So Jacob stewarded what the Lord had spoken to him.
I'm reminded that when the angel appeared to Miriam, she said, it shall be as you said, and she pondered these words in her heart.
Yeah.
And this is...
Yep. 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 So then his brothers went to pasture. Now we're going to see again this play on words, right, between being a shepherd and doing things that are evil, right? Or the activity of sin. These 3 things are correlated there. So they went to pasture their father's flock in Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers pasturing the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them. And he said to him, I will go. All right. Not much to say there, really. But verse 14, then he said to him, so basically the father is, can you do this business of bring me a report again? And so it's like, oh, this has got to be good. My dad wants me to do this. And again, so he's going into this foolish mission, really, of coming in.
He doesn't have a very good memory.
Well, he hasn't learned the lesson yet. Yeah. So he said to him, go now and see, right? See, determine if what your brothers are doing is good or evil, right? He already done this and he already brought an evil report. About the welfare of your brothers and the welfare of the flock. The word for welfare is shalom. Right? And bring word back to me. Verse, yes.
Just one question. So, if we should look a little deeper, the father then wanted to hear what was going on. That's why maybe Joseph, that maybe Jacob, Israel didn't trust the other brother that they were doing the right thing or what?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean necessarily that what Jacob wanted was good either. So you can be sent out into a mission that you can say, not sure this is the best thing. Okay. I'm going to be wise here, and I'm still going to bring a good report. That's what Joseph should have done. And we're going to see now how. How can you bring a good report when what they're doing is actually bad? Right? Okay, we're going to get there. I think that's the takeaway here today. So here's the most important part of the passage here. A man found him. Who is this man? What a mysterious person. Never says who he is or anything about. a man. In Jewish tradition, they say this is Gabriel, the angel. I wouldn't put a name on it, but I'm pretty sure it's not a human. In fact, I would actually think this is probably Yeshua. This is probably Yeshua. I think so.
When I was studying Bible study fellowship, it's a 5-year course of the Bible. That the author of the program said that when we read in the Word, the angel of the Lord, there was the title of the Lord Yeshua before he came into came to his hand.
Right.
And a man is who Jacob wrestled with all.
Right.
Was, I believe, the pre-incarnate.
That's even more clear.
And so this is a man.
Right. Daniel too. And we know it was more than a human being. All right, so verse 15. A man found him, which means he was looking for him. It didn't just stumble onto him. Okay, so, and behold, he was wandering.
That was a good
Joseph was wandering. That is the key right here. And that's the picture we get of the totality of Joseph's character up to this point. He is wandering. He's not grounded, and we'll see this happening again. So he's wandering in the field, and the man asked him, "What are you looking for?" What are you looking for? Let me see if I think I have something about this word looking. I thought I did, but probably.
It's in your journal.
So what are you looking for? And he said, I am looking for my brothers. Please tell me where they are pasturing the flock. Right? So we know these key words here. Then the man said, they have moved from here. The word for moved, nasa, literally means, it sounds like another word, but it literally means to lift up your pegs, the pegs of your tent. So they had a tent, they broke camp, that's what we would say. Lift up the tents of your peg and you move on. May I suggest to you, that indicates that they too are wandering. I think that's the connection between Joseph and his brothers. Just like the brothers, we see clearly the brothers are wandering here. Joseph was too. And so that puts them kind of on more of an equal plane, which would indicate to us, when you find someone struggling in a similar fashion that you are, that's not the time for you to be judgmental. Right? That's not the time to spill out the bad things he's doing or she's doing. Right? So now you see where I'm going with the evil report, with the bad report. So they moved from here. For I heard them say, so listening, not just hearing, but listening, right? I heard them say, let's go to Dotan. The word go, halak. That's your spiritual walk. So they're uprooted, they're wandering, they're walking, and they're going to Dotan. What does that mean? Well, the word Dotan, it's a place, and it means two wells. Two wells. You see, when you are drinking from two, you are wandering. You are not rooted. That was true not only of the brothers, but also of Joseph, who was wondering as well, like they were. What does that mean? Okay, look what that... and it says that Joseph went after his brothers. So he walked, the word when, he walked in the same manner, in the same path of his brothers. He too was wondering. And so he found his brothers over there. So it says, when they saw him, the word saw, right? They're going to evaluate the situation. When they saw him a distance, and before he came close to them, this is a beautiful word because this means to draw near. This is karav. We get the word karvenu, which we know here, to draw near. This is the word for, you see, I had a connection with Leviticus. This is, you draw near to the Lord by bringing a sacrifice. That's why the name, the umbrella term of the sacrifices is korban. The same root word as karav. So to draw near. So the brothers would not allow Joseph to draw near, to have intimate fellowship with them. But they plotted against him to put him to death. So now watch the word death flying around in the rest of this passage. And we're going to conclude with this thought. To put him to death. They said to one another, here comes this dreamer. Now then come and let us kill him. Right? They have a murderous spirit. And then they're going to say a wild beast devoured him. A wild beast. The word for beast in the Hebrew is actually chaya, which means a living being. So this about life. But look for the word wild. Look at the word wild. Ra. Evil. So that which was meant to be life-giving, chaya, a creature, a living creature, is doing what is evil now, just like these guys. And you know what we call that? When an animal is identified as evil, you know what that is? It's a demon. The beasts of the fields are demons.
Yes, I believe that.
So this, and of course we know there's demonic activity all over this. And here's the reason. Here's the reason. Israel is so persecuted by Satan. We'll see it. Look at what Reuben says. Reuben heard this and rescued him out of their hand and said, let us not take his life. You see how they're drinking from two wells? They're drinking from the well of life and they're drinking from the well of death. It doesn't matter, you know, you can say other things. You know, drinking from the well of money or drinking from the well of whatever. In the end, it's all about either death or life. Those are your two wells. When you drink from both, you have problems. You have problems in relationships. Can't let people draw near to you. You plot things. You misinterpret things. It's so all kinds of problems, right? That's what we learn here in this passage.
Being in the world or being in the spirit.
Same thing, because one is about death, one is about life. It's the ultimate is death and life. He says, "Let us not take his life, shed no blood." See, all related to life, to death, life and death. But watch him. He says, "Throw him into this pit that is in the wilderness, but do not lay hands on him." Reuben was going so well. Let's not kill him. Let's not take his life. I'm going to rescue him. And then he allows a door open to death, to the enemy. Let's put him in this pit. Why did he say that? He's afraid of his brothers. He's being courageous, but not fully. there's still a hint of fear that he allows in his heart, rather than saying to his brothers, no, period. He says, out of fear for them, out of pleasing them, he's going to allow a concession, leave a door open, a door to the spit, which still is going to bring Joseph into Egypt. That little door was all that the devil needed to still do this to Joseph.
Reuben was the oldest of it.
Right.
Right. Words of,
Yeah, he was the boss of the brothers. Yeah.
But you know, at the same time, it were the children of the concubines, the maids of the wives of Leah and Rachel, that are those evil kids.
Well, actually, I'm going to disagree a little bit with that for the following reason. That at the passage it told us earlier that Joseph was with the sons of the concubines. The ones that are giving him trouble here are Reuben, Simeon, and Judah.
Right, the other one. Right.
Well, they were there.
It makes it worse because these guys should have known better. They're the oldest. And they're not the daughter, they're not the sons of some shady relationship. No, they're like legitimate. Well, actually the sons of Leah, they were kind of shady anyway. So. Which really affects you spiritually, really.
I thought it was two different situations. I thought that Joseph had gone back, told the father of the four, of what the four were doing, and then the next instance is when all the brothers are out taking the flock.
It is possible that all the brothers were there, and it is possible that the report was about all of them. What I'm saying is the main players are the sons of Leah. Which indicates to you again the persecution that we see between, this is the continuation, this is the generational situation that we see there. You know, the Ishmael persecuting Isaac and Esau persecuting, and so now the sons of Leah are persecuting the sons of Rachel.
And it's interesting that the brothers went to Dothan, this place of two wells, which kind of reflects their attitude of greed. They wanted it all right? But one commentary that I've read, rather than say, let's throw them into the pit, it was throw them into this dry well. So they went for greed.
It was a dry well.
One of the wells was dry. They went to get a lot, and they only got half what they wanted. So,
yeah, that's a good point, because in the end, the one who falls into the dry well is Joseph.
Right.
And it symbolizes where his life is at.
Right. That's right.
He can't feed anyone.
Right.
Supposed to be a shepherd, but he's bringing an evil report.
Right.
So, last one.
Do you think that Leah was kind of upset, so you might have told her, the elder son, what Jacob did to her? Maybe that could have played in this, why they hate him so much?
I'm not sure. These guys were already old. They were grown men. Yeah, they were grown men by now. So, yeah. All right. What do you think? Awesome, right? Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Thank you to the Holy Spirit. He is the source.